All right, hello there, people of the internet. My name is Jagero, and this is Dialogues with Jagero. Before we begin today's conversation, I want you to pause and imagine Kenya you think you know. A Kenya of wide open savannas, majestic lions, soaring eagles, and winding rivers. So that's the postcard image we have been told belongs to conservation. Yeah. But behind the picture is a story many never hear. A story of land, power, exclusion, and the people who have always called this land home. Our guest today has spent over 20 years peeling back that curtain. Dr. Mordecai Ogada is a carnivore ecologist. He's also one of the most fearless voices in in Africa's conservation. A scientist trained in Kenya and abroad, a teacher, a researcher, a man who has walked the forests, grasslands, and villages where wildlife and people meet every day. But he is also something else, something really rare. He's a truth teller in a field built on myths. So, from Laikipia to Samburu, from county lands to the high offices of global NGOs, Dr. Ogada has watched a powerful narrative unfold. And what is that narrative? That conservation is a noble project led by outsiders, while indigenous communities are blamed, pushed aside, or painted as threats to their own environment. He has written a book. His best-selling and provocative book, The Big Conservation Lie, shook the world with one argument. If conservation is not just, then it's not conservation at all. He has challenged billion-dollar institutions. He has called out racism hidden in environmental work. He has defended the rights, knowledge, and dignity of local communities. And he insists, and very boldly, that Africans must reclaim their land, their wildlife, and their voice in deciding the future of both. Today, we are talking about animals in the parks. We are talking about justice. We are talking about history. We are talking about who gets to define conservation and who gets erased from it. Ladies and gentlemen, thinkers and dreamers, this is Dialogues with Jagero, and today I am sitting across Mordecai Ogada. Mordecai, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, a lot of people there is somebody that asked me, but if this guy is talking about conservation in a way that does not appease a lot of people, where is he going to get his job? He's supposed to get his job from the same NGOs. So,
good question.
Yeah.
That person who asked you that question probably encapsulated the biggest problem, that it is foreign led. So those of us who are indigenous to these nations, we have to sing the tune of those foreign leaders, the tune of tourists, the tune of tourism investors, the tune of the colonialists, both past and neo-colonialists. And that's probably why I've done all those many things you've listed that I do. I currently work as a consultant. I'm a temporary lecturer in various institutions around, and a writer as well. So I do a lot of different things. And that's why I have not been able to fit in one place, because there is no, in the conservation sector today as we speak, there is no space for a truth teller. And none of the people who work in conservation in Kenya, not one, can afford to tell the truth.
What is the truth?
There are many truths. If I start with the statutory authority, KWS, the truth is that today as we speak, KWS is a violent, rigid organization that is not fit for the purpose of conserving our natural heritage. It was formed in 1989 out of the then game department. The late Dr. Richard Leakey was given this license to reform it and create a new organization. And he did. And he created it to address the issues of 1989. 1989 now is maybe over 30 years ago. And it was to fight a war against poachers. So he created a military outfit to fight a war against poachers. And to his credit, he won that war.
Yeah.
He won that war. But now the challenges are invasive species, climate change, human-wildlife conflict, the human dimensions of conservation are the challenges now. And KWS is simply not equipped to do that, despite all the highly qualified personnel. Remember, the late Leakey didn't finish high school. So we have people in KWS with PhDs even, actualizing the vision of someone who didn't finish high school.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, but no one can say that. Yeah.
I want to go back to you a little bit of your story. I want to ask the question, what is conservation?
Conservation is a principle. And that's a very good question, because there is no African language that I've ever heard of in all my years in this field that has a word for conservation. We don't have a word for conservation because it was just the way we lived.
Okay.
We kept the river clean because we need to drink the water, or the kids need to swim there. We kept the forest intact because we need wood fuel, medicinal plants, whatever from the forest. We kept the grasslands intact because we needed our animals to graze there. And we kept the wild animals, the majestic wildlife intact because they were our totems. They were sacred. I mean, even in Luo land, you find people called Sibur, or someone called Liech, someone called Joey, someone called Ondiek, and all these things. And it's same with other ethnic groups as well. So these were totems, these were highly revered animals. But what is now being brought in as conservation, quote unquote, today, is something drawn from Tarzan. If you know the story of Tarzan,
yeah.
that myth of some noble white man somehow stranded in a jungle in Africa, communing directly with wild animals in the absence of black people. It's drawn from that primitive or childish vision. And a country like Kenya, again, we've mixed it up with tourism. Conservation should not be mixed with tourism. Conservation is a principle, tourism is a business. Tourism is about pleasing people. Conservation is about keeping your natural heritage intact. These are two different things. And that's why when a tourist wants, there's various other countries in Africa, a tourist comes and is to please, for his pleasure, he'd like to shoot an animal for fun. And we do that for them. We Africans, we do that for them. We license them to do that. I've read all the history of sport hunting in Africa. I've not seen a single black man do it. Even records of that. And that instantly puts supremacy on the outsider. And instantly, the indigenous person, the local person, is a second-class citizen. Yeah.
I want to dial back a little bit to your life. At Dialogues with Jagero, we always do social proofing, where we talk a little bit about you and how you ended up in this field of conservation. What is your story? Right now you live in Nanyuki, but is that where you were born? What can you tell us a little bit about your story?
No, I'm born. I've only lived in Nanyuki the last 12 years or so. I'm born in Kitale, Western Kenya, and probably my earliest introduction, if that will, I always liked the outdoors, being amongst trees, seeing birds and animals and all that. But my earliest memories were going out on game drives. There was a lot of wildlife in the 70s. There was a lot of wildlife between Kitale and Eldoret, around a place called Soy. There were giraffes, there were impalas, there were gazelles, and it was a very enjoyable regular outing with my late father and my mother and my two brothers. Evening drives out of Kitale to go and see the giraffes and all that. Okay. That's sort of my earliest. So that wildlife was connected with a pleasurable family outing from very early on. And then later on, of course, there were visits to parks, the orphanage, and other places where that piqued my interest in wildlife. My skill, if I can call it that, is mainly writing. I really wanted to be a writer.
Is that so?
Yes, I really wanted to be a writer, a journalist, and all that. And My late father was a scientist, and in our family, probably I'm the one who had most scientific aptitude. So I ended up pursuing science. But somehow it's all come together now. I'm sort of writing about my science. So somehow I've reached the place I wanted to be. But that's how I got into wildlife. And so all through school, I was always involved in wildlife clubs. And whenever there was an outing to go out into nature, I was in there. And I always enjoyed that.
And what was your schooling like? What do you take me a little bit about through your schooling, the university, the college?
And so I for my undergraduate, I was in University of Eastern African Baraton, which is in Nandi County, and that's a wonderful sort of nature place. There's a wetland near there. There's the Nandi Forest near there. So I was a zoology student, and we'd go out. We didn't have to go far to go to the field, and get into nature. So that really developed my skills in ecological observation and all that. After I finished from there, I went to Kenyatta University, where I did my master's in animal ecology. And for that was my first visit to Laikipia for my master's. And I was studying the effect of wild carnivores preying on livestock. The impact of wild carnivores on livestock production systems in Laikipia. Because Laikipia, for those who don't know, is an area that has a lot of wildlife, carnivores, lions, leopards, hyenas, elephants, everything, and it's not a national park. So these animals live among people, and people live amongst them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of impact on the ranches. People would lose sheep, cattle, etc., to lions, leopards, and hyenas. So I looked at ways of preventing that by different livestock management methods, livestock housing methods, and that's what I did for my MSc. So after that, I worked a bit. Then I went back to Kenyatta University for my PhD, and that was now about wetlands. And again, studying the ecology of otters. These are small aquatic carnivores in the Wasunyiro River ecosystem, again through Laikipia. So that both these studies were about animals, but they brought me close to the human interface with animals. So I think that's why I've never had an interest in animals away from people.
There are two words you've used there, zoology and ecology.
Yeah.
What do those mean?
Yeah, I'd say zoology is basically the study of animals as opposed to plants, which is botany.
Okay.
So when you come to ecology is now the study about the interactions between them, what they eat, how much of this do they eat, what's their population. So the sort of maths and calculations of the balance between resource use by different species. That's ecology is like the maths of biology, the calculation of what's the ideal population levels, how much space do they need, how much prey do they need, what is the impact on human systems, what's the impact of humans on the wildlife, etc. So it's how they interact, really.
And why would somebody do that? I mean, because if you are doing ecology, are you looking at working, for example, in a farm? So that then you apply that knowledge of ecology. What is the application of it?
For me, the application of ecology was drawn from the fact, and my ambition was actually to work for KWS.
Okay. Because
I knew there's so much wildlife that exists in Kenya outside national parks. And I knew that we cannot eliminate human beings from the places they're living. And we cannot decide to restrict wildlife like cows into a boma. The parks are just, the only fenced park is Aberdare National Park, and I think a good part of Nakuru National Park is fenced. But most parks are just drawn on the map. There's no fence. So there's interaction between people. People are restricted from going in, but animals are not restricted from going out. So I wanted to study this so that we can properly advise people on how to live with these animals, because not everyone knows. And it's a lot of it is simple things. Don't take shortcuts through the bush. As you're walking, walk along the roads. Don't take your animals to the river at dusk. Take them in the afternoon, and all these kind of things. So That was my idea, that I wouldn't be in a position to advise people how to live with wildlife so that the space can be shared.
Is this a problematic thing? Is it a quagmire that people are living amongst animals and animals are living amongst human beings?
It's not a problem, but sadly, the conservation, the contrived conservation that we are doing now has created it as a problem. You hear people saying, we are looking to win more space for wildlife. So who is losing?
Winning more space for wildlife?
Yeah. People want to create more space for wildlife. Just yesterday, the Kajiado governor, Olelenku, said the Ma community is going to donate 1 million acres for conservation. Whose land? Where? Where are the people going to go? And we must also remember that our national parks, most of them are very old, created in the oldest, I think, example said in 1948, others in the 50s and 60s. But they were all created through violation of human rights, displacement of peoples. And I'm not saying they should be gazetted. I think we should keep them as part of the history, the way you can keep. History is important, even the evil part of it. So we should keep them. After all, the families who are displaced from there, we don't even know where they are now.
Yeah.
So we should keep the parks, but we should not be creating any new park. And that's the thing. So the ideal to me is a situation where people can live with wildlife, and wildlife can live in, people and wildlife can use the same ecosystems, the same rangelands and all that, because that's what was there before. Yeah.
What is the biggest fear for people who are in conservation and people who are into the superiority of communities? So, for example, in as far as what you see is concerned, do you think that humans are more important, or do you think wildlife is, upgraded above humans?
My view is that there is no single species in Africa more important than the African human. That's the number one.
Yeah.
And when you approach conservation studies from that mindset, you are on the correct path. Unfortunately, what we are practicing today in Kenya and many other parts of Africa is coming from the perspective or the idea that African people are a problem. The vast sort of overarching policy or idea in conservation in Africa is that African wildlife is in peril. The source of danger is black people, and the source of salvation is white people. That's the very, very costly put. That's the overarching principle in conservation practice in Africa today. And this is where our problems start. This is what's behind all the violence, extrajudicial killings, displacement of people, erection of fences, all this. It's to serve that principle of black people are a problem to wildlife.
Because there is the conservation of animals, right? To what end?
Again, that's the thing. This is a very deep philosophical question, and no one, I can say without fear of contradiction, that nobody in all our state systems, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, KWS, Kenya government, nobody understands that question, because that's where your policy comes from. If we should decide that, in my opinion, if I had the power to decide, I'd say we are conserving these animals because they are part of our heritage and important to us. And we are conserving them as a principle for ourselves. If tourists want to come and see them, great, and they're welcome. But if tourists don't want to come, stay away.
Okay.
We should not. Tourism should be a byproduct of conservation, not the reason for conservation. Just the way if you have, let's say, a livestock producer, you produce livestock for meat and milk.
Exactly.
Not for skins and horns. Those are byproducts.
Yes.
So we can. They are not the core reason why we are raising cows. We are raising cows for meat and milk. The skin and horns is something that comes after we slaughter the ones for meat. And That's the principle we should have. But right now we have put tourism at the center. That's why we even have this abnormal ministry called Tourism and Wildlife.
Yeah.
At a table where people are discussing wildlife conservation, tourist investors, tourism interests should not be even at the table. Kick them out of the room. After we've decided what we are conserving and why, they can come and decide if it's beautiful enough to go and see, and they can go and see it.
There are two questions that I want to ask you. Number one is that from where you sit, when tourists come to Africa, they would rather see the animals and not see shanties and grass-thatched houses and kids that have no clothes meandering about the cars. Is that so that when they come, they're in a jungle where all they see are the leopards and all the exotic things? Is that the idea? And that is why they're saying, okay, why are these people in our paths?
Yes, and this is the Tarzan principle. It's this primitive, childish Tarzan principle. That Africa is beautiful landscapes, beautiful forests, beautiful wildlife. Black people are a nuisance in the tourism mentality.
Okay.
And that's why you'll see a lot of tourists will come. He'll go maybe to Masai Mara or Samburu. He'll say, oh, it was great. It's a lot of... But there were so many cows and goats and people and livestock or whatever it was. And this is it. This is a very deeply racist sentiment, because my view is that if you don't want to see Samburu people, don't come to Kenya.
Yeah.
Go and see a lion in the Bronx Zoo in New York. If you don't want to see Maasai people, don't go to Masai Mara. Go and see an elephant in a zoo somewhere, because we are the. If you see like the name of Masai Mara Reserve, Masai, that's people.
Yeah.
That's someone's homeland. That's someone's shags, as we say.
Exactly.
And this is a very flawed principle, and it's targeted. It's very deliberately targeted at black people, because there's a lot of tourists who go to China, India. You never hear someone going to China and say, it was nice, but there were too many Chinese people.
Yeah.
You never hear that. Like, I went to India, I had a great time, but there were too many Indians. You never hear that. People who go to France, you don't say, oh, I love the Eiffel Tower, but there were too many Frenchmen hanging around there. Why is it that in Africa, you can actually complain about too many people? And we, by we I say the Kenya government, is probably, or the Kenya tourism sector, is partially to blame for that. Because if you look at all our advertisements, they show animals, they show beautiful landscapes, they show white people. In a tourism, these brochures and the photos and all that, you do not see local people there.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful things you see in Laikipia is you'll see a herd of elephants and there's a guy with a herd of goats there. Such a photo will never appear in our tourism brochures or National Geographic TV and all those. Because, so if someone in the US maybe, or Europe, watches National Geographic TV and sees about Kenyan wildlife there and he says, oh, I want to go to Kenya. He's never seen a black person on camera in National Geographic TV. So when he comes to Masai Mara and he goes to Talek, and there are black people and goats, and he's disappointed. He feels cheated.
Yeah.
This is not what I came to see. What are these people doing here?
Yeah.
In fact, he feels they're outsiders. They should not be here. And we are doing our people a great disservice by that kind of messaging, the magical Kenya messaging. I think Kenya is not, magic is a childish thing. Kenya is not magical. Kenya is beautiful and diverse and breathtaking and everything. It's not magical. Magical is nursery, toddlers things.
Your book begins with a startling personal experiences in Laikipia, moments where you were treated as an outsider in your own story. I mean, what did you see?
That's probably one of the. By the time I first went to Laikipia as a postgraduate student, I knew quite a lot about biodiversity and ecosystems and all that, but I knew nothing about the culture of conservation. So probably that's my most starkest learning experience is going into ranchlands where it was almost like a kingdom separate from the rest of Kenya. There's been a recent done movie, The Battle for Laikipia, about the land issues there, and these are lands that were granted by the crown in colonial days, etc. And they're vast. They're vast. We have lands 50, 60, 100,000 acres. Most Kenyans cannot even visualize
100,000.
Visualize 100,000 acres. It's so vast. Like if you ask someone, is it raining at your place? He says it's raining at the lower side, but at the upper side, it's not raining. It's so big, it rarely rains in the whole ranch.
Yeah.
But there I sort of came pretty face to face with prejudice as a student. To many people there, this I'm talking about 2000. To many landowners there, I was the first sort of educated postgraduate student that were there interacting with, because I had to meet the landowners. Like, I'd like to collect data on your ranch about the lions and all that, and it was sort of, many were taken aback. Some outrightly said no, and some wondered, like, where did this guy come from? It was like a novelty.
Yeah.
Because that's how isolated Laikipia was. And as it went on, obviously I became a familiar figure around, and people got comfortable around me. And often people would say things that would give me a moment for pause. Like, I was in Laikipia at the time when Robert Mugabe was annexing all those lands in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
From the white farmers. And people were in a panic. We got to be sure that this won't happen in Kenya. These people can overrun us. And people would have these conversations in my presence. And given that, I realized that there are parts of this country that are so isolated and removed from the rest of us. It's almost like they're islands that remained. They're colonies and protectorates that remained after independence.
Can you give me a picture? Because I've always wondered. I went at there is a time, my first time going to a ranch. It's Koru. I went to Koru in Moroni. There's a place called Homalime. Is it Moroni or not? Koru? And I went inside there, and we drove for a long time. And there was a beautiful villa or castle in there, which was 100% white. Yeah, with extremely good roads and sugarcane and farms for cabbages, and it looked to me like a country that can survive without the rest of of Kenya.
Yes.
Paint for me a picture of what exactly happens, for example, in Laikipia. Do we have like 100,000 acres here, 100,000 acres there, 50,000 acres there, and are they connected to electricity? What is their way of life?
There's several ranches. So Laikipia County is approximately 10,000 square kilometers.
10,000
that's a county, right? And of that, these ranches we are talking about are probably 40% of it.
40% of it?
They're probably 40% of it. And the number of ranches I'm talking about might be, they're less than 20. So basically what I'm saying is that there's the smallest that I know is 11,000 acres.
11,000 acres?
That's the smallest. So most of them are between 50, 40, 30.
And to whom does it belong?
These lands belong to that's one of the things, that they were originally crown grants given by the colonial government to demobilized soldiers after World War II.
Okay.
Yeah. They've changed hands a lot since then. The manner in which they change hands is by sale, but they don't go through the process you and I go through. If you want to, it goes to land board, stamp duty, all those things. Then in recording, Ministry of Lands, it shows that Jagero owns these 3 acres here, or Mordecai owns that 1/4 acre there. These ones are just sold across the table, and that paper that one was given, the grant, is given physically to you. And so they end up being owned by consortiums of investors, all foreigners, all. Consortiums of investors, some of these conservation organizations like Flora and Fauna International has invested, the Nature Conservancies as investments in there and all that. So their ownership is very shrouded in mystery. A few years ago, Laikipia, after devolution, Laikipia wanted to raise the, what do you call this? Not stamp duty, but there's this annual fee you pay for land lease or whatever. It was a pittance. It was being charged at 3 shillings per acre. So someone with 100,000 acres would be paying 300,000 shillings. They wanted to raise it to 10 shillings, which is still
very little, yes.
Very low. There was a huge hue and cry. And they lobbied up to the highest offices in the land, and this thing was stopped. And most people, including me, were wondering then, like, these are billionaires. What's the problem with paying some small...
2 million, 5 million.
2 million, yeah, it's nothing to them. They are dollar billionaires. Then I realized, no, payment of that fee will mean people will know who you are. You cannot pay that fee without going and saying, this is, I'm Mordecai Ogada, I own land LR number, this.
But if it is 3 shillings, then people will not know.
No, the process of paying will make you get known by the government. You see? Because if I'm paying stamp duty or whatever it is I'm paying to the government, I have to go with my ID and everything. You have to know this is Jagero paying.
Yeah, but my question is, even if it remained at 3 shillings, then people should know who you are when you come to pay.
Yes, they've not been. They've not been paying.
Oh, so they've not been paying it?
No, they've not been paying it.
So essentially, because you said that Laikipia is 10,000 square kilometers.
Yeah.
That means about
4,000 square kilometers
belongs to the white people.
And
they don't pay anything to the government of Kenya or to the county of Laikipia. I mean, come to think about it, that is bonkers.
It's bonkers. But we have several such enclaves in Kenya. We have Laikipia, we have Tigoni, we have some enclaves in Diani, the tea estates.
Why are you calling them enclaves?
Because they're sort of exempt from the norms. They are lands that are exempt from the norms of independent Kenya.
Really?
Yes.
But you see now...
That's the sad state we are in now. Magadi also is another one.
I hope that you are enjoying that episode, people of the internet. You know, everybody says there is no job. And that is true. Also, that was me 10 years ago. The problem is that everybody is trying to get a job in their own town, in their own city, in their marketplace. They ask friends for jobs. Mothers call uncles, uncles call fathers, but there are no jobs, right? Let me tell you what no one is telling you. Jobs migrated online. What I actually mean is there are many, many jobs around the world and there is no one to do them. I have worked for a long time online, I think more than 10 years. I work for Americans, I work for Europeans, I work for the Chinese, the Australian, Canadians, the Ugandans, name all of them. And last year, I had a eureka moment. I said to myself, you know what? I should compile what I have been doing for the last 15 years. So in 2024, I wrote a book called Gold Mine, 18 Side Hustles for Africans. And it sold a lot of copies. In fact, I was going for, sometimes I was receiving 500 orders in a day. In 2025, something happened. AI came. I think in 2025, AI came. AI came in 2024, but in 2025, it is here with us. And people say AI is taking away their jobs. And for me, I'll say false. there are actually AI jobs. Na mimi ni nani? I created more jobs. We now have in my book 25 online and offline side hustles that you can do anywhere in the world, whether you are in the village, whether you are in your small town, whether you're in a marketplace, whether you are in your house, you can do them. In this powerful volume 2, I share 25 new actionable online hustles specifically researched and tailored for Africans. My new book provides clear step-by-step guidance, drawing from my extensive experience and research, including the mistakes I have made and lessons I have learned over 15 years in this online job market. You can become an executive assistant to busy folks in Europe, America, and Canada. You can also get paid for tasks like watching videos and taking online surveys. There are many of them and they're in my book. You can also build a business as a virtual assistant, start an e-commerce without a shilling. You can also become an affiliate marketer or an online English tutor. And you can also do tens of AI jobs, and they're all in these books. If you have a job, that is fine, but I know around you there are so many people that are always looking for jobs and at home watching Netflix. Buy this book for your brother, for your sister, for your mother, cousin, husband, who is back at home all day, all night watching Netflix. Okay? Buy it for your friends. That friend who is always asking you for cash, you can buy this book for them. All the information is in the description below. You can also inbox me, you can WhatsApp me, or you can go to my website, which is oduorjagero.co.ke. The book is only 1,000 Kenya shillings. Or if you're anywhere around the world, the book is $10. So thank you very much. Back to programming. Mr. Mordecai, you know you're sounding really strange. You're sounding really strange. So, we had the first president of the country, Kenyatta, who probably would have made a deal with these people that, look, we are going, but there are things that we are leaving behind that you shall not touch. Mm-hmm. So then Moi comes and respects what Kenyatta and the rest talked about. Mm-hmm. Kibaki comes and respects the same. Mm-hmm. Uhuru comes and respects the same. Ruto comes and respects the same. Mm-hmm. Essentially, what you are telling me right now, that there is almost a quarter of this country does not belong to this country as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, at independence, you know, there were the independence ceremony, there was some papers or some file that was being held up by dead President Kenyatta at the Declaration of Independence 1963. Okay. We don't know what was in that. We don't know what that said. What that said. And another thing we need to remember is like the Lancaster House talks were basically a bunch of tribal leaders who were invited to Lancaster House, and they sat around the table and said, what do you want? They said, me, I want land. Give me this land, and then then my community will support the independence. Give me this, give me this, give me this. Lancaster House was not a negotiation. It was not a process of achieving the aspirations of Kenyans. It was the colonial government, British colonial government, identified tribal chieftains they could compromise and create an indigenous black nobility that could maintain the imperial structures. And that's what they did. That's what they did. And that's why these things are so respected. A short while ago, there was a land dispute in Nandi County. And the governor went and uprooted some tea bushes on a small piece of land. Okay. The governor. He was arrested. This was not this term, the previous term. He's the same governor now, sir. He was arrested.
That is how powerful
these agreements are. That is how powerful these agreements are.
And there's people sitting at the back and protecting these people is basically Britain right now.
Yes. I mean, the thing is, we talk a lot about it's important part of our conversations as people to talk about what whiteness does in Kenya. But it's important also to understand that whiteness used to refer to people who are physically white.
Okay.
But we have a lot of black whites in Kenya now. Whiteness is a behavior pattern. It's imperialism, basically.
Can you explain more?
The thing is, when the colonialists left, they made sure they created black colonialists.
Okay.
The white imperialists left, but they created black imperialists. And even now, you still see the scions of these families, even the scions of those who are long dead, post-independence leaders. None of them are with us anymore.
Yeah.
But see, their scions still hold sway, still somehow are inheriting power or a place at the table, so to speak. And this is imperialism. Kenya is actually an imperialist's dream, because Kenya is the one colony in Africa that turned out the way the British wanted. Here is where it worked.
How so?
Because after decades after independence, we have a thriving industry owned by the British. Or the profits, the majority. Britain makes more money from Kenya's tea than Kenya does, by brokering and all that. That's why our tea cannot be exported labeled. The labeled tea is sold here. Those ones that are labeled from source here. But export is just exported in bulk and labeled, blended, etc. out there, and that's where the profits are made. Same with coffee. That's why we have this excitement over cash crops. The creation of national parks, not just in Kenya, but all across Africa, rapidly accelerated after 1961, because this is when independence was now coming. And these were created to remain as white spaces in a rapidly blackening continent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Blackening.
Yeah, blackening. Continent. And this is the other many other countries have sort of moved away with the time from this, but Kenya has held on to the romance of the safari. And it's because Kenya was such a sort of, there was so much romance associated with conservation in Kenya. And talk of George Adamson, Teddy Roosevelt, was then the US president, came here on a widely reported and chronicled hunting safari, 1910 to 1911. Look at, as I said, the Adamsons, look at Ernest Hemingway. Kenya was this favorite hunting and fishing ground. It was like the ideal, romantic, beautiful landscapes, wonderful wildlife, successfully suppressed people who are knowledgeable enough to speak good English and serve empire effectively. Yeah. But would not use that knowledge to sort of question things. And fast forward 2025, it's not much difference.
I want to go back, because this is very interesting. I want to go back to the ranches and farms. Yeah. Because I am totally green, and I think a lot of Kenyans would be very when we talk about these ranches. So what is a ranch? What is going on in there, essentially?
When I first went to do my master's studies, these were livestock production operations. They'd raise cattle, camels, sheep, goats, and commercially, and it was very profitable for many years. A lot of the beef, etc., was for export. Still, some of the top quality beef comes from Laikipia. You go to the top restaurants in Nairobi, they'll tell you Laikipia beef. Yes. And all that. Olpejeta is still a very prominent beef producer. Then the EU happened. And the EU came with a lot of livestock restrictions. Import restrictions, rather, that were based on veterinary health issues. So they wanted health certified. So suddenly, exports from Kenya, meat exports, were not going to Europe. We needed to do this. Then early 2000s, these ranches actually, and I think World Bank gave funding for this. It was proposed to make Laikipia a disease-free zone for livestock. This basically entailed fencing a fence all around these ranches that would not allow any animal to leave or come in, to ensure that they have got a quarantine area that produces healthy meat for Europe. This obviously was untenable, because this is also a pastoralist area. And there were Kenya government designated stock routes that pastoralists could walk their animals from Samburu and further north all the way to Nanyuki, where they'd be put on the train to KMC or whatever in Nairobi, or brought even here to Dagoretti slaughterhouse. So that was untenable. So there was a period of financial difficulty. Then they decided, we are getting now into conservation stroke tourism. So ecotourism is what the buzzword was then. So again, a lot of donor funding, a lot of tourism operations were created there. And there was a lot of donor funding even into research, including my study. My master's study was financed by Africa Wildlife Foundation with some money from some US foundations, and to see how we can maintain this equilibrium and ecosystem between livestock and wildlife. And it picked up from there. Soon after that, they changed their legal status of these lands to conservancies. Yes. So very few today are talked of as are called ranches. Most are called conservancies. Now, conservancy is it implies charitable organization.
Yes.
It implies donor funding. It implies tax breaks. I mean, if you are just selling cows, you earn your money and you pay your tax. But if you are in conservancy, suddenly you are sort of philanthropy.
And so you can sell as much meat, but you're saying that the money is going back.
Yes,
to take care of the animals. And
yes. We are putting this money, and all sorts of machinations were put in place to maintain the status and ownership of these lands.
Was this baked into law, or they just came up with it?
They came up with it as an idea, and the whole process of coming up with these ideas, these are all donor-funded processes. Laikipia has been a base for a lot of manipulation of Kenya wildlife laws and land laws. And all sorts of tools are used to maintain status of these lands. For example, Mount Kenya Forest was declared UNESCO World Heritage Site some years ago. A short while after that, somebody talked to UNESCO, and the World Heritage status was extended out of Mount Kenya Forest to cover Lewa Conservancy. Yeah. So Lewa is now a World Heritage Site. Why? I don't know. It's just someone's farm.
It is someone's... What do you mean it's someone's farm?
It's someone's farm.
I have had... Even there is a Lewa marathon.
Yes, that's where all this happens. Suddenly that land now cannot be touched by anyone because it's a what? World Heritage Site. Same as Mount Kenya Forest, same as Lamu, same as think.
Who is the owner of Lewa?
Think of the pyramids of Giza in Egypt.
Do we know? Can we tell the owner of Lewa?
Yeah, Lewa. The ownership is right now probably the Nature Conservancy owns a good chunk. Is a big shareholder in Lewa. So I'd say Lewa is owned by the Nature Conservancy. It used to be owned by the Craig family, but I don't think they own it anymore. Again, it's difficult to know, but these are the things that are done to secure status and ownership of lands that they want to keep in perpetuity. So suddenly now it's a World Heritage Site. I mean, why isn't my little plot a World Heritage Site? I'm close enough to Mount Kenya. Or if I wanted that, who can I talk to?
Guess you'll have to talk to UN about that.
Yes, I'll have to talk to UN about that.
So the way it works is that they have got buildings in there where they sleep. Because when I asked you actually about how it works and how it looks, I was thinking about how does it look? Is it
there are homes in there? They have homes in there. They have lodges, tourism facilities in there.
Lodges.
Yeah, they have lodges in there. And now in fact there's a new trend where billionaires, wealthy foreigners come and pay these landowners some fee, and they're allowed to build a holiday home. You know, those people, Europeans or whoever else, they want to have a holiday home somewhere in Africa. So he's got money, pays this guy a lease fee and says, here, they write an agreement, comes and builds this nice, beautiful, luxurious holiday home. for life. After he dies, I think it goes to the home is inherited by the landowner. But he has a holiday home for life, and while he's away, it is used as a luxury lodge. There's a number of houses you'll see advertised that maybe they house maybe 8 people and you pay something like $15,000 a night.
$15,000 a night.
Yeah, for 8 people, and the minimum stay is I think 4 nights or something like that. It's
so that's 2 million Kenya shillings a night.
Yeah.
And the accounts are outside the country.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah. I mean, there's no part of that operation that requires any payment of money or any financial delay in Kenya.
And if you're a Kenyan that wants to go there?
If you're a Kenyan that wants to go there, somehow you'll need to find your way to go and book and go. You will find your way to go and book and pay and these kind of things. But there are all sorts of, you see, there are all sorts.
Anyway, you will pay by card and then
we'll go wherever.
Will resolve in their offshore account.
Yeah. And I can tell you, even the current when the current government was constituted, one of the first things that happened, that the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, one of the first operations of the ministry, newly appointed ministry and officials, was to go on a visit to Lewa. They visited Lewa. I can tell you that after appointment of the first minister and PS and all that, they visited Lewa even before visiting our national parks. They visited Lewa first. It's almost like homage to this conservation kingdom. And in 2017, there was a really bad drought in northern Kenya. And a lot of these ranches had blocked the livestock movement routes. So there were a lot of pastoralists who marched in from Samburu, from the north, and entered these lands in Laikipia. And there was violent resource conflict. And I remember then Boris Johnson was the foreign affairs minister of the UK. He wasn't prime minister then. He came to Kenya and landed in Laikipia without any Kenyan government official. He landed in Laikipia with the Royal Marines helicopter and said, we will protect our citizens and our interests. That was 2017. Now, you need to understand the limits of Kenya. There's some.
So President Ruto right now is saying, okay, if I go and take this land and give to Kenyans, then I'm going to be sanctioned by the West.
I think there is there must be some agreements that were signed that are binding to any Kenyan head of state or Kenyan government, that for these agreements to be breached, it will require a major falling out and renegotiation of relationships, particularly with the UK. And I'm afraid it seems so far we haven't yet had any government with the
think this agreement is classified? Kenya knows about it.
Yeah. I think it's those papers that Kenyatta was holding up.
But why did Kenyatta throw them in the ocean?
No, those documents are there. They're still. Even a short while ago, there was a big scandal which appeared on BBC, ironically, about abuse and sexual harassment of workers in the tea estates in Kericho.
Yes.
Nothing was done. Because the authority, it was done in a place where it's governed by another authority. Nothing was done. The people, they had hidden cameras. The people were seen. Perpetrators were seen. And they're still there, functioning in office. And it's the same thing. You see right now how many years it has taken for even that British Army soldier who killed, she was called Agnes Wanjiru, or some lady in Nanyuki got killed. That was 2012. It's just this year that he's been brought to court in the UK. This is 2025. And that shows you sort of it is not like if someone, me or you, went and did a heinous crime like that, the outcome would be very different. And there is some immunity that we don't know the extent of, but there's immunity that exists.
Sort of a diplomatic immunity.
Yes, that's extended to even people who are not diplomats.
They are not diplomats.
Yeah, a trainee soldier is not a diplomat.
There is the issue in South Africa about land.
Yeah,
that according to most South Africans was misappropriated by the white South Africans, and there has been a long-standing war between the government that some of that land they want to force a sale for that land to go back to the black people.
So compulsory acquisition.
Yes, compulsory acquisition. What is our situation in Kenya? Do you think that Kenya has any need to free up this land? For example, I mean, taking up a quarter of the land in Laikipia.
Kenya's case is complex, because if I talk even from the as I was saying, like about the national lands that were expropriated from people, like the national parks, etc. Right now, 80, 90 years later, we don't even know the people who are ejected or displaced from those lands. I personally am afraid that if we did that now, those lands would go to our current political elite. They wouldn't go to settle landless people.
Yeah.
And then another thing in Kenya that's different from a lot of other countries is that the complicity of our elites in the disenfranchisement of our citizens. This is not a new thing. This is what happened from the colonial days and up to now. And if you look at the Anglo-Maasai Agreement of 1904, I've got a copy of it. I'll send it to you later. I used to think that sort of white colonial soldiers came and at gunpoint chased the Maasais off this land. No, it was the chiefs who were recruited into this scheme by the colonial government and paid and told to move their people, and the chiefs moved their people off those lands, 1904. And that's how the Maasais lost so much of Laikipia. Even you see some of these Maasai names still survive, Oljororok, Olkalau, but these are now lands inhabited by Kikuyu people who settled there after the colonialists left. But the Maasai were moved far south. And now, I was just discussing with you earlier that yesterday or the day before, the governor of Kajiado said that the Ma community is going to donate 1 million acres to conservation. I don't know where this 1 million acres is. So it's in Kenya, our situation is so badly complicated by the behavior of our elites. How do we claim we want to get that one back when we are busy handing out even more? And this is the reason why things like a lease like Magadi Soda Company, the Lake Magadi covers around 30,000 acres or something like that. But the total land held by the Magadi Soda Company is 230,000 acres.
Who is the owner?
It's now currently owned by Tata Chemicals, foreign company. But it was taken in 1924 for free. No one was paid anything by a British company.
So who Tata paid somebody then?
Tata paid the owner in England. It's now the ownership changed from an British company to an Indian company. But it was taken for free in 1924. 100-year lease. That, if you calculate, that expired last year, 2024.
Yeah.
And quickly, the Tata Chemicals people rounded up some few elders and they took a trip to India. And I don't know what was done to persuade them, but they signed an extension of that lease. They signed an extension of that lease for, I think, another 30 or 35 years.
Are they the ones to sign the extension of that lease?
No, they are not entitled to it. It doesn't belong to them. And this is the thing. It's like the 1 million acres. is being offered by someone who doesn't own the 1 million acres. And if you look at the Amboseli National Park, it does not belong to any individual. So how is it
belongs to the government?
Right? It belongs to the government. Parks are held in trust for the people of Kenya. They're held in trust by KWS for the people of Kenya. That's why they're called national parks. There are those reserves, like Samburu Reserve is owned by Samburu County. Bogoria Reserve owned by Baringo County. Masai Mara National Reserve owned by Narok County. But national parks are owned by the state central government. There's no single individual who can decide to give it to Jagero or Mordecai. But this what complete. When we talk of we need to retrieve ownership of these lands, no, it's we need to first stop displacing people before we start correcting the earlier displacements. But we are still just following that path, unfortunately.
Yeah. The Northern Rangelands Trust features a lot in your book. Are you able to contextualize what it is about?
Yeah, the Northern Rangelands Trust, it's pretty much moribund now, after a few sort of funding shocks. But the Northern Rangelands Trust was created 2004. It grew out of Lewa Conservancy, and it was the brainchild of Ian Craig, who was then the owner of Lewa Conservancy. And he sought to expand conservation areas because he had turned Lewa into a conservancy. So he didn't want it surrounded. You want this wildlife area, so you don't want it surrounded by villages and these black people and goats and all that. So you need to create more and more space, a buffer zone, ideally so that eventually your guest sitting on a balcony will look into the horizon without seeing any village. So he sought to expand that. And then he convinced various donors, and this somehow fit in with the Western conservation imperatives. So suddenly there was so much money coming for USAID, Agence Française de Développement of AFD in France, Danida in Denmark, and lots of wealthy individual donors. Money came in, and they were expanding, creating conservancies, community conservancies. So a community conservancy is basically you gather friendly people, friendly to your cause, a few elders, you convince them, sign on this paper, and once you sign on this paper, we'll bring a lodge here, but first you have to move your people away from this area to keep the core area for the lodge and the tourism and all that. So it's like many Anglo-Masai agreements, small ones, who are signed to form these community conservancies. And the money kept flowing in to fund them. And so it grew. Eventually, at its peak, NRT was controlling, I think, around 42,000 square kilometers in Kenya.
42,000?
Yeah. NRT was the size of a small country. They were controlling lands from Turkana to Samburu to Laikipia to Lamu in the coast. It was like a small country. And this is an NGO that somehow even had armed guards, armed law enforcement personnel, under an NGO. So it grew into it basically became like a monster. It was so big, the donors were sort of almost hostage because the NRT was taking their recruiting game scouts from local communities, taking them to Manyani KWS paramilitary training facility. They were getting trained in tactical training and being armed. So donors basically were imprisoned into having to keep funding this thing because they'd only be told, like, we've trained these people and we've armed them, so we need to keep them. So give us money for their salaries, because if we don't pay them, they can become
bandits,
rustlers, bandits, poachers.
There are a lot of white what is this word? Conservationists.
Yeah.
Right?
Conservationists It's a very strange word. It's a very strange word because basically when a Westerner, in the context where these places where I've worked, it doesn't require qualifications. Like, for example, what I did.
Yes.
You need to come and sort of get out there and fit the image and talk the talk, go around the landscape and all that, and it's a very problematic term because it puts presumption on the fact that this same person who even does hunting is a conservationist. I mean, some of these hunting was banned in Kenya in 1979. Before that, they were hunting in these lands. Hunting went on in Olpejeta longer than that, even after 1979, because of the people who owned it.
Olpejeta is another one.
Yeah.
I've seen them on Facebook talking about their meat and their animals.
Yes. So, and it's one of the ironies, actually, because Olpejeta, as we said, is one of the premier beef producers in Kenya. And it's also a wildlife conservancy. So, if wildlife and livestock are fine when they are in Olpejeta, but when we are out there, you hear of people saying there's too much livestock. You hear of tourists saying there's too much livestock. No tourist ever complains that there's too much livestock in Olpejeta. Yet when you are seeing the elephants, you see the cows also.
So it's just the black faces.
The black people are the problem. The black people are the problem. It's not the livestock. It's not the livestock. It's the black owners that are the problem, and that are the target of this prejudice.
And this is sort of the racism that you say.
Yeah, it's there. It's sort of subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's there in all the propaganda, from the posters. If you think of even look at animated movies from Hollywood. Look at The Lion King. African animals speaking in American voices and American accents, and no black people. I already mentioned Tarzan. Look at the movies like Madagascar. Look at all that propaganda. Look at National Geographic, David Attenborough's movies. It's all about beautiful landscapes, beautiful wildlife, HD photography, beautiful stuff, but no black people. So you don't have to say expressly that black people are bad. You let the camera say that for you. You delete them on the camera, so that when someone sees them in real life, they look like interlopers. What are these people doing here? Yeah.
Africa wildlife crisis narrative that they are dying is an exaggeration.
Yes.
And you also say it's weaponization.
Yes, it's an exaggeration, because I can tell you, if you look a few years ago, I think the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust came up with a poster saying that one African elephant is killed by poachers every 15 minutes. That was the figure they said. And at that poster, I have the copy of the poster. At the bottom of that poster, they've written, at this rate, there will be none left in the wild in 2025. This 2025, we are sitting here with you. That was produced a few years ago. So it was obviously a lie. But this is important because it maintains that narrative, that crisis narrative, that creates space and justification for extrajudicial killings and displacements, etc. For example, if a robber or carjacker kidnap someone on the road here, police will chase him with the aim of arresting him, prosecuting him. They might have to use force to mobilize him or whatever. But if you are seen, Jagero, sneaking, even taking a shortcut across Nakuru National Park, I can tell you for sure, KWS Rangers do not carry handcuffs. If you are seen walking near where there's rhinos, you will not be handcuffed. You will be shot.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
And this is the training they've been given, that people that jaywalk in parks are supposed to be shot.
You will be shot. And you see that the fact is that this is why we need. You remember what I told about? Like, it was formed to fight poachers in 1989, and we haven't reformed it to this date. And I'd challenge the KWS management to show us the handcuffs that the rangers have. If the rangers have handcuffs, they don't. Unless they were introduced maybe this year, I know rangers don't have handcuffs. And that's what. And you see, a lot of the rights abuses, they happen close to where rhinos are. I mean, thank God, Jagero, that there's no rhinos near where you live. You would never have peace. I thank God every night that there's no rhinos in the vicinity of my home, or in my ancestral home.
What would have happened?
We would not have peace. I wouldn't be able to come home at 8 p.m. without risking being shot. I wouldn't be able to take a shortcut. I wouldn't be able to move freely.
Are you saying that there is the Maasais and the people that share boundaries with these people are at serious risk?
They're at serious. They live very difficult lives. There's a road, for example, there's a road in Laikipia from Narumoru, which is in Nyeri, to a town called Lamuria. It passes along the fence line of Solio Conservancy, and there's rhinos there. Woe betide you if you are walking or cycling or motorcycling along that road at night. There's a road that passes along the boundary of Olpejeta, where there's rhinos. Woe betide you if you are walking, cycling, or whatever along that road at night. I need not mention Nakuru National Park. The Brian Odhiambo case is going on. And this is the reality of rhinos today. Rhinos are, I've said it often, that a rhino is probably the most powerful land grabbing tool in Africa today. If you could acquire a rhino, you would get land to put it, you'd get a license to fence that land, you'd get firearms licenses to guard that land.
So the KWS work for whom?
The KWS, I'd say the people, the purpose served by KWS right now is not us. They don't work for us. They work for white supremacy, I'd say. They don't work for us. In their current form, no, they don't work for us. They work to guard the conservation empire. They're the guards of the colony.
Is it the donor psychology? Because I'm imagining if somebody is having, let's say, 10 square kilometer themselves. They have got beef, they have got milk, they have got crops that they do in there, but they still amass a lot of support from the NGO world. So is it pure greed? The greed of the land,
Yes.
and the greed of the money from the NGO world?
It's a profit motive. It's conservation is supposed to be a principle, but we turned it into a business, a very cruel and violent and greedy business. And the other thing you mentioned is that the donor thing. So it's donor fueled. So even the taxation that happens when Jagero has a business, Jagero is working here, he's got tax deduct. Donor things they move up there above our tax level.
So a conservancy can get, let's say, 1 billion.
Yeah.
As institutional support.
Yeah.
They will have their animals, they will have their crops, right? And then they will allow a billionaire to
build a home
there. And all this money might not be seen in Kenya.
No. You don't need to see it in Kenya. Or maybe the watu wa mjengo building that home, that's the That's the little bit that's seen in Kenya. The vast bulk of this money, I'd say 90% of this, the whole financial stuff, operations, is outside.
So they'll probably be paying tax on this money in the UK.
Yeah, if so.
If they're doing business.
Yeah, and if you have there, the thing is, if you are in the UK or in the US, for example, there's this 501c3 tax, and the UK has the same. And you wouldn't, the amazing thing is that you won't believe how many lodges, tourism businesses, are actually donor funded and classified as philanthropy.
Wow.
I mean, why would a donor, if Jagero wants to build a lodge, you have to go and look for a loan, build and all that. Imagine there are people who have built lodges with donor funds, and donors have funded lodges.
And it is a lodge that would easily go for 300,000 a night.
These are high-end facilities. And I'm talking the facilities that maybe go from $800 a night going up. That's per person. So donors have actually funded lodges. So why are donors funding businesses?
Is it an organized crime?
It is organized crime. The conservation tourism sector in Africa today is organized crime. It really is. Complete with violence and displacements and briberies and corruption. I mean, if you look at our state structures, look at KWS. KWS is a law enforcement organization.
It's like the police.
Yes, like the police. Why can an individual, Jagero, can go to KWS today and say, I've brought 10 Land Cruisers to donate to you? And you don't ask, what does Jagero want? Can you go to the police and say, I brought Land Cruisers? They'll ask you, who are you? And what do you want? And why are you bribing the police?
Yes.
That's the question you'll be asked. And you see a lot of these private sort of NGO type conservation operations, a lot of them say, like, we are fighting poaching, we are running anti-poaching operations. In fact, we are following some poachers, we know where they are and all that. Can you imagine if you went to the police and said, I know where the rapists are and I'm pursuing them? The first one to be arrested will be you. And you know who? But people commonly go and say, yeah, we've been fighting poachers in Savo or whatever for X years. If you come and say, I've been fighting rapists or carjackers in Dagoretti for 10 years, you'll be a suspect. And that's the thing. It's to maintain this constant crisis. And these are people who come and donate millions worth of vehicles, computers, this, that, the other, to a state law enforcement organization. And these are the same people who will come and say, apply for a license to do, I don't know, to
and they apply the KWS.
They're applying to these same people who they've just given them 20 Land Cruisers last month. And now you are applying for a permit to, I don't know, keep baby elephants.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Ogada. This is one of the most bonkers conversations.
It's crazy, and it's crazy that these absurdities we are talking about are hidden in plain sight. There's nothing I've told you that's not in the public domain.
Yeah.
And I've never been in any privileged position that allows me to see information that other people can't see.
And the book, how was it received, especially in the West?
The book, when we wrote it, because it's co-authored with Gatu Mbaria, when it first came out, it was total ostracism. I mean, Mbaria is a journalist by profession, but I'm obviously a conservation practitioner. So I got ostracized. People would not want to be seen even having a cup of tea with me. And
in your own field?
Yes. My friends literally would not want to be seen having a cup of tea with me or saying hi to me on the street. So that was it was launched 2017 early. By about 2018, there was that huge disaster with the rhinos which were translocated and 12 of them died in Savo somewhere. And then people started asking questions. Oh, these guys seem to be saying something true. And fast forward to now, I've gotten many teaching assignments, etc., in various places, and it is accepted now that we are saying the truth. And the book is, people would be afraid to be seen with the book. Maybe they hide it in a newspaper those days. But now it's discussed and accepted widely. I think what has really helped us is that common people, non-conservation people, accountants, whoever, Jagero or whoever else, are now talking about conservation and these issues. So conservation is now coming under the same scrutiny as business, schools, anything.
How do we move from here? What happens if the president said, "Well, I want to listen to you"? What do you propose as a way forward?
We need to do another. What Moi did with Leakey, he called him and told him, disband and fix this thing. We need to disband and reform.
Disband what?
Disband and reform KWS. We need to do that. Secondly, we need to, whatever is formed needs to be fully funded, 100% funded by government. The way the government 100% funds police, 100% funds prisons, 100% funds the army. We cannot have a state security organ taking donations from people we don't know.
Especially people with a lot of vested interest.
Foreign people we don't know with vested interests. We cannot have that and claim that KWS is ours. And then the other thing is we need to approach conservation as guardianship of our heritage. The way we guard our children, the way we guard our lands, our airport, whatever, it is ours. We need to guard it whether or not any single tourist comes. So that removes that savior mentality. Today, any tourist, Western tourist who comes to Kenya thinks actually he's saving our wildlife by coming. I've even taught students come on field courses here and they feel they have that mentality that we are going to save wildlife. And I keep telling them the first thing before we come here, you are saving nothing in Kenya. Those wildlife will be fine if you are never even born.
Because they're actually wild.
They are wild and they're ours. You are just coming to learn. You are not coming to save. So if we need to eliminate that, both from the conservation practice and also from the tourism practice. Tourism that needs to be separated. So we should have a brief period during Kibaki's tenure. We had what was called Ministry of Forestry and Wildlife. That is logical. Tourism and wildlife is abnormal. Yeah, because we'll be all about tourism and not about conservation. Yeah. And this, so all those things, if all those things are done, the overarching principle is that we would get to learn just how valuable our natural heritage is. Because as we speak today, not a single person in the entire government of Kenya has any understanding of how valuable our natural heritage is.
The book that is coming up, are you at liberty to talk about it? I might,
it's actually already live on sale on Amazon, although the shipments to Kenya are on the way coming. It's called Green and Evil.
Green and Evil.
Yeah. It talks about, it extends the conversation into the whole climate change, sustainability, carbon credits, all these things.
Because that is the conversation that I want to have with you when you come back from from what is it called, Nanyuki again.
Especially, and I think we can pick it up, especially once the books are here, and because there is so much. This is probably a bigger organized crime network than the conservation elephant conservation, rhino conservation thing. The whole climate change, climate action scenario is riddled with the dishonesties. And they're taking advantage of the fact that climate change, okay, for the record, climate change is happening. It's real. We see the floods and all these kind of things, unpredictable weather. But Suddenly we're having carbon credits, we're having green finance, you hear things called green growth, you are hearing something called green hydrogen, green this, green that, green the other. These are tax evasion and money laundering mechanisms. It's like carbon credits. Someone thinking you can pollute a river somewhere in France or Germany or America, and then you come and plant trees in Taita, Kenya to solve that problem. That's nonsense. I cannot bathe to clean Jagero.
Yeah.
Jagero must bathe, take his own shower.
Thank you very much. It was a really pleasure having you, Mr.
I look forward to that.
Mr. Mordecai, we will have that. And please, when you are having the launch, make sure that you call DWJ. We have a conversation live on stage. You remember the conversation that we had when we were having Ochuka's speech?
Yeah.
I want to have that with you.
It will be a pleasure.
People of the internet, thank you very much for staying with us up to this end. Please consider subscribing. Hit on that notification bell so that when we have something explosive like this one, you'll be the first person to be notified. Until another episode. Bye.